we got Google involved. And they did this big giant study for us, which was great. We're in our second round of it right now. So we took every single house in Mill Valley, put a car in the house and ran it through a model to, watch the evacuation process and learned ways to improve it. They also did Paradise at the same time, and they did Paradise to verify whether the model worked, because they applied Paradise pre-fire to what actually happened in the fire event, just to confirm that process works. So anyway, that's a quick description of my background, and I look forward to working with you.
Yes, welcome to the committee. So let's start with the agenda adjustments. Does anybody want to make a change? I don't see that there's any reason to, but moving on. Open time for public expression. If anyone would like to address the committee, please do so now.
At this time, anybody in the public, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand and you will be noticed. I see none. I know hands raised at this time. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move straight on to the executive officer's report.
Good evening. I'll try to be as brief as possible. And John stole a little bit of what I was going to say about him, but it's better coming from him than from me. But John was instrumental in building the language and massaging the language to the end product that we have. And I did want to touch on the evacuation modeling that Mill Valley worked with on Google, that we have already the draft report from that with our team that is working on our evacuation ingress egress risk assessment. So the data that was learned from that will be absorbed into our overall study. And from my understanding, that study is now getting finalized and will go through a formal peer review process. And then again, that data will get wrapped up into our evac ingress egress risk assessment. So that work that Mill Valley has been doing is going to pay off for all of us. I sent you all a recent video that MWPA put, or actually Fire Safe Marin put together, of the MWPA accomplishments, and it's snippets from each of the sessions for our 5 geographical areas. You can watch all their Fire Safe Marin has all the individual webinars or workshops available, but I was struck with the positive change that we are instituting here in Marin with that work. I think we can all feel this. There was a sense of pride when I saw the amount of work that is getting done. And I know that we've already had some fires hit areas that we've worked on, and to a positive benefit. And a little too early to tell, but but we are doing some in-depth research that will actually give us measures of success for our work. And the draft that I saw today speaks very positively about the work that we're doing. Now, while I say we've done a lot in the last 2 years, it's not enough. We got to keep the momentum going. In fact, we got to increase our momentum, and I think we are poised to do that. You've also probably noticed that we've gotten a lot of publicity in the media lately, and some of it's been us reaching out. And then, quite frankly, some of it has been we're starting to establish enough of a name for ourselves that the media is calling us when they want to talk about wildfire stuff. So it's great that we're getting that knowledge out there, getting that our name out there. But we still have a lot of audiences that live in Marin have never even heard of MWPA, even though they likely voted yes on Measure C. They probably still don't know what MWPA is. So we still have a lot of work to do. One of the ways we're going to do it is through our Adapt to Wildfire campaign. And we have reached an agreement, or Fire Safe Marin has reached an agreement with all the movie theaters in Marin that we'll start having a little bit of an ad before every movie in Marin. So if people finally start going back to theaters, I haven't been to one in 2.5 years, but people start going back to theaters, I think that'll be one way we get it out. There's going to be so many other ways, though, whether it's Golden Gate Bridge District buses with our ads on them, working from community centers, sharing our information, libraries, places of worship, supermarkets. So those are all the forms that we're looking at for our outreach. A lot of times this, June-ish, people start asking me what my thoughts are about wildfire season and the number of fires that we've been getting both locally and throughout the state. And this is by no means a scientific study. It's completely from my perspective and experience. We're about average right now as far as the number of fires that we have started getting both locally and throughout the state. I kind of gauge it by how many times incident management teams have been deployed, how many strike teams have been sent out up and down the state. And so far that aspect of it has been quiet. I know there's been several Father's Days where I've been on a strike team. And so, you have those little dates in your mind that sticks in your head. And so Father's Day away from my kids would always stick in my head. So I've been on fires in those days. And lately this year, we haven't started that. So that's the good news. But I'm by no means am I saying that's how the rest of the fire season is going to go. And then some of the local fires that we've had, great initial attack. You might have heard me talk about the small fire that was in San Rafael as a great example of DSpace work. It wasn't work that MWPA did. It was work that residents had done to create defensible space around their home. And that's really what caused the success for that fire. But I also wanted to point out the great coordination between San Rafael Fire and San Rafael PD for their evacuations they pushed forward. So we are becoming, as a fire or public safety, we are becoming much more efficient with that. Kingston asked I mention or talk about prescribed fire, and specifically in regard to the fires that are in New Mexico that were ignited because of prescribed fire. It wasn't what's called broadcast burning, where we construct a line and just let the fire run from the line. These were pile burns that actually occurred while it was snowing. And so there's one big difference. We won't be doing pile burns in the snow in Marin. Well, maybe we will, but the chances of that are pretty slim. And then oftentimes in locations such as that, and even in California, in the quote wilderness, they'll have pile burns that they don't extinguish. And when you combine not extinguishing pile burns with snow actually acts as an insulating layer and will allow the heat to stay. There have been several fires in California that, quote, had a season-ending event, unquote, and that's what put the fire out. Well, sometimes that season-ending event is snow. And there have been rekindles once the snow melted from that original fire all winter long. So that's what happened they were pile burning in the snow. They didn't extinguish it. More snow came over, probably got into a root system, and it stayed hot enough to continue combustion. Snow melts away. And then now we have a heat source. The Southwest has a slightly different fire season than us. They tend to start earlier, and then they get the monsoonal moisture starting now, and that's when their fire season starts to drop down. And then finally, the audit. We finally have our final audit now, and we have a meeting scheduled for the third Monday of February or July, which I believe is the 18th, if I'm not mistaken. So July 18th is when the finance committee at 10 o'clock will review the audit, and then we'll bring it to the full board on the Thursday. And so then once the full board accepts it, that's when we can kick it over to you guys. And with that, I'll take any questions.
One thing is I've walked over and looked at that area on the San Rafael fire. And where the way I went up that hill, I've walked over that in that area a lot. And it really was the residents have cleared it out. But if that had been any more wooded area in that area and they hadn't been cleaned out, that would have taken, I mean, the homes up there are like $2, $3, $4, $5 million homes. It would have, and that's some of the oldest sections of San Rafael. So it would have been a real disaster. So.
And my understanding is that resident has been very consistent in their work. This isn't something new for that resident, but it's great to see that as great as it is that the MWPA is getting work done. I like it even more when the residents are getting work done.
Well, and Dominican is very good about cleaning out and that whole area around it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just that they have a crew that's just unbelievable. So they deserve some credit for this as well.
Yep.
Any other questions? So we're moving on to
Hey,
the,
Lucy, we're having some issues with your mic, and also Larry's got his hand up.
yeah. Oh, sorry, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Mark, as you know, I had sent you an email this week about a question I got from a Larkspur resident. I was wondering if, I'll frame the question and I'll let you respond to it so it's on the record.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, we had a resident who received a notice giving them recommendations about what to do with defensible space and the inspection that had been done on their property, but they weren't at home. So they were asking who did the work and whether they were permitted on the property when somebody is not at home.
And it's a question we get a lot on twofold. First, one of the first questions is who's actually performing the inspections? And there's oftentimes a thought that Fire Safe Marin is who's performing the inspections. But as you guys know, it's our member agencies that are performing the inspections through the funding from the MWPA. Central Marin and West Marin have banded together with the same pool of inspectors. Then Southern Marin, Santerfell, and Novato have their own pool of inspectors. And then the question of, can you inspect for our property without permission? And this has been, we do have legal counsel review on this. And the best way to describe it is the UPS driver test. If the UPS driver can get to the front door to knock on the front door to be able to deliver a package, then our inspectors can go to the front door, knock on the front door and ask for permission to inspect. If nobody is there, then anything that is visible from the pathway from the house to the front door, they can inspect and provide feedback on. And then quite often, not quite often, we always try to leave a door hanger and say, hey, by the way, these are the findings that we've had. If you would like a full 360 of your property, then we'll be happy to come back for a full 360. But the UPS driver test is how we kind of put it. If there's a locked gate and there's a button on the gate to get in, if there's nobody letting no one to answer the gate to allow them to come in, then they won't go beyond that locked gate.
Great.
John,
Thank you.
Yeah, we pursued this in Mill Valley, actually with our attorneys a while back in connection with that 3-foot zone we were trying to put around properties that created a lot of agita in town. And everything you said is consistent with what I was told from our attorneys. But the other thing I did learn, which is kind of interesting, is that if your neighbor has an inspection of their full property and they can see your house from the neighbor's house, the neighbor can, and especially if you're weedy and they're not, the neighbor can say, come on back here, I want to show you this stuff on my neighbor's house. And that's clean, that's good to go too.
Yeah,
Right? From the neighbors, if you can see it, it's also subject to inspection.
Correct. If it's visible from a public right of way or from an area that you were allowed to be in. That is such a common thing where we'll get a request. Hey, can you come check my neighbor's house? And the answer is always absolutely. We're happy to. However, we'll check your house too.
okay, any other questions? Okay. Pat, was that? No. Okay. So we'll move on to the consent calendar and open the item for public comment.
Is there anyone at this time wishing to speak on the minutes for approval? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the minutes and approve. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And second,
Can I make a correction to the minutes?
oh, sure.
Yes.
I wasn't there, but if you look at the minutes, you ended in about 12 minutes. The ending time is incorrect. It says 5:48, I believe.
It was a very short meeting, but not that short.
Not that short.
Probably supposed to
And
be
sorry for-
6:48. I'll check it. I'll make that correction.
Just a minor thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having network problems. That's why I'm late and on this other screen and such. So my apologies.
Move to accept the minutes as amended.
Okay, should we, do we have a second, or do we need a second, or are we ready to vote?
So we had a first from John. Did you make? No, John
No,
didn't make it.
it was me, so I amended.
It was you, Larry.
motion.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
So I
So we
amended
didn't
that
get,
motion.
we didn't get a second yet.
No, but I amended that motion.
Right. Thank you.
Second,
Okay, so we can move on to a vote.
Okay, Member Cole,
Approve.
Member Minneke,
Here,
thank you. Member Chu,
Aye.
Member Dilworth,
Approve.
Member Suggs,
yes.
Member McCauley,
I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
thank you. Member Randall,
Approve,
passes 6-1 abstention. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to committee reports, and we can discuss the monitoring assignments. So who would like to update us on the committees that they've been observing? Or the board?
So I can report on the executive committee, nothing exciting, nothing new. So I can't think, I mean, I've looked at my notes and there was nothing there. That we had a brief report about the COC annual report. And I think the only other big discussion was around Emberstomp, which has happened.
I can give a report on the board. There were at least a couple, and Mark, I'm only going from memory, so please, there's a couple of really big things. One is 2.5 years of working on the ecologically sound practices document, and that was approved. It's a non-binding document. It's for guidance primarily. There's quite a bit of discussion around it, which is good. And the big one is the Ross Valley fuel break. And that went through approval. And that will be a long project, I believe. Right, Mark? A couple of years at least. So I'm sure there's more, but those are the two that stick out in my mind right now. I didn't write this down though.
The Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break with the $3.25 million grant we received from CAL FIRE, coupled with MWPA funding, we're estimating 3 years for completion. But that project, like many of the other future projects we'll have for the MWPA, will be like painting the bridge. It will be a constant effort.
And I will leave it at that as my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. Did the finance committee meet? No, I guess not this month.
Mm-mm.
So,
Yeah.
Pat.
Lucy, while this isn't actually a committee, I would just like to say a word about Emberstomp. And, you know, I think it was just an absolutely great event. And I especially enjoyed seeing so many of everybody I know from the fire community there. I know I saw Mark and Bruce and just tons of people. And I think it was an excellent event. And I think it's important to note that no MWPA money was actually spent on Emberstomp, that they managed to get sponsorships to pay for the entire thing. And my apologies for sitting here talking to you on my iPad. I don't know what's wrong with my computer, but it's not working. So hopefully the picture and voice quality is okay.
That makes two of you on this, on the iPad thing today. Maybe it's the heat, who knows? Just a quick follow-up on Ember Stomp. It was remarkable. And some of the comments from vendors, I really appreciated when they said that this was the most well-informed community they've ever seen in their shows.
Okay.
Question, Lucy, on committee assignments for observation. And or maybe this is for Mark, I'm not sure. How do we get John assigned to, does he just take over where Max left off?
That would be ideal for us if he'd be willing to take on those. I think Max was on 2. Do we have a?
He was on 3. He had board of directors, executive, and operations.
Okay. So John, it means sitting in on these meetings and.
Yeah, I mean, not sure, whatever. You know, I need to kind of sit down with Mark a little bit and have a better understanding of exactly what's going on here. Sashi told me there was a need and I said, okay. And then I got a note from Mark on Saturday that said, okay, you've been picked. And so I haven't really had a chance to really do anything. I've been too busy working on my exit speech, which I gave last night. So yeah, it sounds fun.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And I'm happy if you'd like to give me a call at any time. I'll give you a description of how we see what we're doing and just get you up to date.
Great, Lucy. I appreciate that.
And before we run off to Larry real quick, I also have an onboarding packet to send to you, John. And so we've had a real tight time frame between that last board meeting and this. So normally we have about a month where I can get that onboarding packet to you. But sometime this week or next week, I'll get that packet to you.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to do is volunteer to be your onboarding buddy. And the second, you can give it some thought because of your own personal interest, but I think it'd be a waste of talent to put him on committees that are anything other than the finance.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Finance is my wheelhouse. So
Yeah.
maybe we can figure this out next month. I don't even know what the committees are, honestly. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Actually, we can just switch from operations to finance. You want to
Yeah,
just do that?
because with him on board, I literally don't want to do everything this year. If I have someone.
Good.
And John, I think I can speak for all of us. Feel free to reach out to any of us, really.
thank you, Larry.
So we move on to, is there public comment on this? I'm never sure.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay, are any members of the public like to talk to us? I think not, but what I can see.
Is there any members of the public that'd like to speak on any of the committees that have been in the past? Please raise your hands. There's no hands raised. Thank you.
Okay, and moving on to information items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share with us? We have nothing in particular on the agenda.
I'll get back to you when we're done with the Google work, which is probably going to be in a couple of months. They're going to publish an academic paper. That's what ends up happening. So
I had a quick question, John, on the study that Google did on Mill Valley. Did they do it at various times of day? So they did the modeling for midnight and for morning school run. And
no, Lucy, good question, but not really, because the idea was everybody leaves, right? So that was our model. We found some errors in the first report when we got into it for the second report, but the basic concept of it was like, what would happen if everyone hit the road at the same time? And Google independently come up with some recommendations which were consistent with what police had already kind of somewhat considered, which you guys know what contraflow is. So there were some contraflow strategies and a few other details. And when we got the first report, what we did is, I'm all about action, so we ended up, agreeing that we were going to not just have this as a rough plan. We actually went out and purchased all the signage necessary, and we've done drills to make sure we understand what we would physically do. And part of the strategy there was that in the event of an emergency, since neighboring communities would come in, we can hand these actions to the neighboring community officers because, you know, they're not going to know the hills as well as the city does. So that was some of the things we did. We also had this fascinating exercise where we created a traffic jam on our main street, one of our main streets, East Blythedale. That was extremely easy to do. Actually, we asked for volunteers and it was published for a month. And then we got them all lined up. It was at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And then what we did is we rang the bell and let everyone move to what we were starting to call super CRAs, which is a large field where we know we could park a bunch of cars, right? And we didn't put them on the field because we didn't want to damage the sprinkler systems, but we did this and we were all shocked. 9 minutes. We removed all the cars on Blythedale, 250 cars in 9 minutes. So that was a proof of concept that was done with real people in real time. And we built that into the modeling. And what we're doing in our current round of modeling is we've become more sophisticated now that we understand the flows better. There are things we didn't know that our police didn't know in terms of where the highest problem areas would be. And now that we know them, we have a better strategy about how to deal with them. And we also run it. We are running it for everybody, not in 94941, not just people who are in Mill Valley proper, because obviously fires don't follow, stop at the edge of town. So another huge learning experience we had is it's staggering. And I get to patent this because this is my quote. It is take one car, save the one behind you. And going in 2 cars versus 1 car, it is a huge difference in speed for evacuation. So as much as we're hammering, 2 ways out and, all that kind of stuff, this is going to be the headline of our next postcard we're sending to people, because we now have data that tells us how significant that impact is. And it's huge. So, which only common sense, but when you really see the numbers and how much it takes to get people out, it's helpful. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're working on. So it's very interesting. It's fun.
Did you have people doing carpooling with their neighbors or just leaving one of their own? If it was a 2-car family, they left one behind.
Leave it behind, right? So take your strongest vehicle, and this drill was kind of confusing for people. And that typically you're exercising the memory muscle for people to get out of town from their location to a particular CRA or to the freeway, right? That was not what this drill was about. We didn't care where people lived, whether they would have been on Blythedale or not. We just wanted cars on Blythedale, our street, right? So we said, wherever you are in town, if you're willing to hang out Saturday morning, get in line. And everyone got in line. And, and then we actually had we borrowed a drone from you guys, I think. Somebody had this really expensive, fancy, like, I don't know, $200,000 drone that was up flying around, watching it. It was really cool. And then we had all that, expensive gear, the big screens you use for evacuation, where you put on your cell phone that you're an evacuation member and they can keep track of you. So there was a lot of activity that occurred. And then once everyone was lined up, we had a trail car in the back. It was Tom Walsh's wife and assistant fire chief. And then we rang the bell and we ran everyone through it. And literally we were going, wait, there's got to be more cars. And that was it. We moved them. So we knew we could move people at speed. And then we built that into our strategy, our contraflow. I'll get into it all later, but
Did you have a final count in that it took 7 hours to evacuate the entire town? Is that?
We have a number, but I don't want to share it right now. But we had a number on the original study, and then we made some significant improvements in that number by using some planned evacuation route strategies, and they were positive, but we also found some errors in the way they did it. So this new one is much more accurate, and we're still working on it. So. And we're also looking at some individual zone evacuations to get an understanding of how the zones evacuate. That's kind of interesting too. What we found is that if everybody leaves at the same time, it jams everything up. And then if everyone leaves over a little more extended period of time, then you get less traffic. But the overall evac time is kind of roughly the same in many of the areas, depending on the density of the area, because this is highly precise. They're using the real streets, the real loads, the real traffic intersections, and who knows how cars interact better than Google. So it's interesting work, So
sounds Sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love it if they did it in San Anselmo, but
Yeah.
okay. Any other information items to be shared? Okay. Well, I guess I have one, and that is that the committee that's going to be looking at the scheduling and report writing manual will didn't meet this month, but will do so, and should have something that's been prepared. I know, Larry, you contributed already to it, but we'll have something probably to show by next month. So we'll have a better idea of how we should be organizing ourselves. Okay, so we're moving on now to action items. And I don't know if I open it to the public.
The vice chair position open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the subject of the election of the vice chair to the COC? Please raise your hand. I see none at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so I hereby ask for nominations for the from committee members for the position of vice chair of the committee. Kingston, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I would like to nominate Pat Randolph. All right. Well, I think I've worked with her quite a bit this year on a couple of committees, and just think she would be just perfect for that position. So I'm nominating her. Thanks.
Okay.
Do we need a second?
Yeah, got a second.
Oops. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so we take a vote.
Okay. Member Cole,
Yes.
member Minikis?
I have to think about it a little. I'm just kidding. Yes.
Member Chu,
Aye.
member Gilworth,
Aye.
member Suggs,
Aye.
member McCauley,
Oh, I don't even know anybody here yet, but since Larry said aye, and I know Larry well, I would say aye also.
and member Randolph.
Yes, I would be happy to take on this responsibility at this time.
So by unanimous vote, member Randall will be vice chair.
Yay.
So committee members' request regarding any future agenda items? Anything that anyone wants to propose? Nope.
Can't think of anything.
All right. So I guess we can adjourn. So Rebecca, did you have
I
something?
was just going to say, thank you, Lucy, for your chairmanship
Yes.
and,
Pleasure.
and doing all of that work for the last 6 months. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very
Right.
much. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
You know,
Okay, so Pat.
one thing that we probably should have mentioned earlier, and I don't know where it would have fallen, but our report is finally finishing up. It's looking pretty. We know that it was approved a month ago by this committee, but we have been working with, I don't know what you call a designer, to have it ready for public consumption. And I know that both Lucy and Rebecca have put in a lot of time with multiple reads of the document as it has come along, and I think everybody's going to be very happy to see the final product.
Yes, in fact, that does raise a question, Mark. Once we reach the point that we're happy with it, do we send you, or should Joanne send you the document so that you can publish it on the web? Or does it need a particular kind of copy or density or anything? Do you know if there are any issues with that?
No, there shouldn't be, and I think we're on track to have it go to the exec committee in July and then to the full board following that.
So would you, are you saying that it shouldn't be published on the website until the executive committee and the board have reviewed it?
I gotta think about that. But this is new for me. This is, and I'll look to John and Larry. This is my first interaction with the publishing a COC report.
Okay.
Well, typically you give it to the organization before you give it to the public. I mean, it's just kind of a courtesy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're probably really looking at the beginning of August then if you go to the executive committee in July.
Mhm.
I think if we get it to the exec committee in July, I can go to the full board in July as well.
Okay.
Okay, good, thank you. So nobody else has anything? Is I adjourn the meeting?
Wow.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Nice meeting y'all for the first time.
Meeting.
Sorta.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you, John.
Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
And
Lucy.
I have my
Thank you,
internet
Lucy.
back. I'm
See you next
happy.
month.